Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson here of World Alternative Media, and of course I'm joined by economic analyst and author here at WAM, John Sneisen. And now we are going to talk about something that recently happened at the G7, what Shinzo Abe said, and we're going to kind of go into detail on that a bit. So John, can you talk about what happened?
Yeah, right now we have a current massive crisis in this between the central planners, especially Bank of Japan, the ECB, and the Fed. Because what is happening and what happened in the Fed and others and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, had a series of meetings where I do believe, like, we don't know exact like what they were talking about. What I do believe that they were talking about was that Japan should stop their current monetary easing, where they've been printing massive amounts of money, buying stocks directly even into their stock markets. Now suddenly they just stopped out of thin air.
Yeah.
You know, they just really stopped, like, and it was really weird. But if what is right, what I think it is, it's that Japan actually made a deal with the United States that they're going to stop easing so the United States could devalue their dollar. I think there's a devaluation, and there's a lot of experts saying that that's coming, and they do believe that that was the case with these meetings. And for some reason, you know, Japan just stopped cold turkey with their monetary easing, which is weird.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into the G7, the current G7 meetings, and what took place there over the weekend now. Of course, the G7 and their financial statement declares that they have strengthened the resilience of our economies in order to avoid falling into another crisis. Now, Shinzo Abe, that's the Prime Minister of Japan, actually has some very different views on what's going on. He is actually, and of course this comes back to the now starting to, because Japan needs the easing because they're in a natural deflation. So I do believe that Shinzo Abe really is getting desperate and angry here. And he said during the G7 leaders meeting, the risk of global economy exceeding the normal economic cycle and fallen into a crisis if we did not take appropriate policy responses in timely manner. Now, he said that, of course, this is a lot of talk, but what it comes down to is what he said throughout this whole presentation is that he indicated that there was a danger of the world economy careering into another crisis on the scale of 2008 Lehman shock, which is when Lehman went bankrupt. Now, what I did is in February of this year, I actually wrote an article called Financial Crash Code Red. Because what I saw is that both commodities and stocks, especially the bank stocks, were acting exactly the same way they did in 2008 before it crashed. Now, you can go and we're going to show you a couple of different charts that's going to actually show you what happened in 2008 versus now currently happening in 2016 with, for example, Deutsche Bank and Lehman Brothers and others, is that, you know, we're currently in that time where it's going to crash right away, and they're just sitting there up on their pedestals in the G7 meeting saying like, oh, everything is fine, you know, the world is perfect, you've got rainbows and blue skies. It's a fantastic world to live in now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a couple of charts, and Josh is going to pull them up on the screen for you, where we saw in 2008 what happened with the banks, and then also what is happening currently in 2016. Now, there's a quite interesting aspect of this, and this will just blow your mind, because we talked about the 2008 Lehman crisis. That's what Shinzo Abe was talking about, that was the danger of happening again. I think we're in some way deeper crap than that, because the derivative books in 2008 of Lehman Brothers, do you know how much it was? Well, it was $28 billion. Deutsche Bank currently have $75 trillion. So $28 billion in derivatives toppled Lehman Brothers. So you don't believe that $75 trillion would completely demolish Deutsche Bank and it would be gone?
Yeah, that's like the world's GDP, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very close to the world GDP. I know it's a little bit above, I believe, $75 trillion, but it's insane. Think about that. They actually have just worthless derivatives. That is a massive amount of the world economy. Like, it's basically bigger than the world economy almost. And it's just extremely high risk. You know, our derivatives are 1.5 quadrillion currently. and probably even more as we continue on with this. And
It's absurd.
the banks are just like continuing on with their monetary insanity of believing that we could just leverage ourselves out of this mess by just going into massive amounts of debt, and it's not going to happen, guys. And also another thing, just to come back on, of course, we talked about the stocks that are tanking right now. Well, what also happened in 2008 was the commodities just like completely plummeted in value. Well, what have we seen just recently, right? But of course now they manipulated it quite a bit, so we haven't seen like the actual crash happening right after that. They've been able to manipulate it for a while, but we're getting really close to that point where they can't stop it anymore. It's just going to be a freight train just going straight forward into a concrete wall.
There's no doubt about it that history does repeat itself when you're continuously doing the same wrong things over and over and over again. And now, why do you think that Shinzo Abe is being, I guess, somewhat honest about this situation?
Well, I think he's trying to save his own skin, and they also are desperate to putting more monetary easing, because you got to remember, Japan has an aging population. They're not growing at all. And what does these central bankers need? They want inflation and growth. Well, the only way they can get it is by printing money out of thin air and just buying very bad assets from the books of banks or companies in Japan. Japan is just in a natural deflationary state. They just should just let it happen, and the monetary supply in the fiat yen that they have should just decrease, and actually the yen should strengthen very, very much if they just let things happen. But of course they're desperate because the government has borrowed so much freaking money in Japan that they can't let a deflation happen, because then they go into default right away.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so this is obviously a global issue. Economies collapsing worldwide, devalued currencies, printing out of thin air, debt, devaluation is just completely insane and completely rampant. And I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see that we are looking at something very similar to 2008, except for like on steroids. And I mean, Japan is feeling a bit of this, as well as basically every other country on the planet. I don't think there's any countries that are avoiding this. I think I asked you a few days ago, what country can we do a report on that's actually doing well? And we had to kind of think, and like, there aren't any.
No, not really, because they're all a part of the same fiat currency system, guys. And when you use the fiat currency, like always, people become greedy, and then of course the government uses the where they print the money out of thin air and just borrow that money, and that's how they believe that they're going to get themselves out of trouble. Where the government that don't produce nothing of value should save the world and save the economy. Well, look at Venezuela right now. Do you think it's working to have a centrally planned government controlling and spending a whole bunch of money?
And Argentina and Greece and Zimbabwe and we can go on and on. Suriname, as we were just talking about. Let's just get this straight, folks. All paper money reverts to zero naturally eventually. Central planning doesn't work. We need a free market. We need freedom. It's the most instrumental thing to humanity itself is freedom. It's simple. It's a simple concept. It's, governments and a lot of collectives that complicate things. It's not a complicated concept, though. Like, come on, guys. Japan has been through a lot in the past, but they still haven't learned. China's been through a lot in the past, but they haven't learned. Most of Asia, we could say the same for, and I mean Europe, and I think we've all been through this before.
Actually, most countries in the world have had a hyperinflation or a devaluation of their currency or a complete reversion to a new currency because of the loss of value of their current currency. There's almost no countries today that haven't that have withstood the time and actually had the currency survive. There's basically none, guys, and it just shows you that having a paper currency, like, it failed before, why should we try it again? And we just think that technology is going to take care of it and suddenly magically create something that's going to work. No, it's not. And of course now the cashless society that they're pushing these guys Marxism, and trying to get into complete over over us. They're just going to be able to print money even super fast now.
And it doesn't work, it never has, and people become debt slaves, and we keep going around in circles over and over and over again. And it's like we just don't learn. Let's demand, and I mean demand, a free market system that is powered by the individual's vote, and that vote is from their dollar and where they put their dollar, and the manipulation of the markets, and obviously sound money and independence. We need to end this manipulation. It is fraudulent. It is hurting every individual. We all feel it, and we should all have independence so we have sound money, ability to take care of ourselves, feed ourselves, and shelter ourselves. It's a simple thing that we as human beings have made complicated, and through our central planning, how we think that we can play God and do whatever we want and be able to come out of it fine. The free market is the only thing that's ever worked. You don't see people running and trying to escape through barbed wire to escape free markets. It's never happened. I don't think it'll ever happen. But what we do see is people escaping socialist and communist societies, collectivist societies, and we need to put an end to this. This comes down to us as individuals. What are you looking up there, John?
Well, I just felt tempted, since we're talking about the collapse of currencies. There's a book that you guys have to read. This is the Bible to me. And this is where I use, and I got to give credit to the old man, Ralph T. Foster, for creating this book here. It's called Fiat Paper Money, The History and Evolution of Our Currency. But I'm going to show you one page in his book here that's going to scare the crap out of you guys, because this is worthless currencies that ended up worthless just in the 1900s to 2010. So have a look at this, guys. This is just a warning that should really scare the crap out of you. Look at all these currencies.
Yeah.
And there's not just through the wartime. This is like currencies that are failing even worse in like modern time.
Yeah.
Actually, right here, we have the 1991 to 2000s, and then the 2000s right at the end here. Like this is actually right at the end here. It's the currencies that failed, and it's about 60, 70 currencies that failed the last 2 decades.
And we are reaching the 1,000-year anniversary of paper money, 1024 AD in China, and you think we'll have learned after 1,000 years of pain and suffering and debt?
I really hope we're gonna have a big, massive global collapse to celebrate the 1,000-year anniversary of fiat currencies, and then finally learning from it and saying like, this is it. We're not going to do this idiotic, stupid mistake ever again.
Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's heed the warnings. Let's make sure that we and our families and our friends and our employees or our colleagues are safe in the event of an economic collapse. That's what we are here for. We're just giving opinions, because obviously under the law we can't give legal advice, economic advice, but we are giving opinions, and you can look it up for yourself. Don't take our word for it. Look this stuff up. It's all there. It's historical. It's evident, and we just want to be the messenger to bring information to you guys that will keep you safe out of your own free will and your action with this information to keep yourself and your family and your friends safe in the event of an economic collapse. It will happen. It's inevitable. Let's focus on this, and let's try to do our very best to make sure that we'll come out of it in the best possible way that we can. So thank you, John, for another excellent report. This is Josh Sigurdsson, John Sneisen, signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.